So, good morning, everyone. My name is Wakama from IT News Africa. And today we are talking to Lars Veul. He's the CEO and co-founder of Pargo. So let's get right into it. Lars, please tell us about yourself and what is Pargo exactly?
Good morning, thank you. So I am Lars. I am originally from the Netherlands and moved to South Africa in 2012. I have a background in e-commerce. I came to South Africa, Cape Town, to help establish a big international e-commerce company in 2012. And while I was doing that, kind of realized the big challenges of delivery of last mile logistics. And about 2 years into that project, into that job, me and my co-founder Derek, also a Dutch guy, decided to leave our day jobs and to start Pargo and try to solve the challenges that we saw. And Pargo is a technology company. We are solving these last mile challenges. We provide retailers with e-commerce delivery and fulfillment services, and are on a mission to make delivery more accessible, more affordable, and more convenient for the end user, for the consumer.
Thank you. Thanks for that intro. Now, we all know that COVID-19 has accelerated the growth of e-commerce within the retail industry. What are the major changes you have seen in the logistics sector to keep up with this growth?
So, if we just go back, 2 years, there's been a huge change, I think, in South Africa in terms of the retail sector, of e-commerce, and in our industry, the logistics industry, that obviously has a big impact. First, if we go to March 2020, I think we, after that kind of first lockdown that we had back then, and then when everything opened up again, we saw a 4 to 5 times surge growth of e-commerce deliveries. There was a huge shift in demand from traditional brick and mortar retailers moving into e-commerce retail. And for logistics specifically, it really meant that there was a lot of pressure on existing distribution network as the demand was increasing. But I think a big advantage is that the logistics industry, a lot of the logistics players have been around for a while, have started to understand e-commerce delivery better and better. So have had a few very busy Black Fridays in the last kind of 5 to 10 years. So we're quite well equipped. But really where we saw the gap was the actual retail companies that were struggling with this demand, that all of a sudden had to rely on e-commerce, on online retail, to be a very big portion of what of their total sales for a few weeks and months. It was almost any kind of sale they could make, and eventually it kind of evened out to about 4 or 5% of their total sales, right? So before COVID it was 1%, and then it jumped to kind of 4 or 5%. So what we realized was just this huge demand for technology, for solutions. The companies that pre-COVID had been investing and preparing in their e-commerce and digital innovation obviously were in a good situation. The ones that hadn't needed to kind of jump into the reality and start working on new e-commerce transformation strategies and putting them in place and making sure that they kind of kept up with those happening around them. Specifically in the logistics industry, we've seen a lot of other startups coming up. There's a lot of companies in the on-demand delivery space. We obviously all know about Checker 6060 that all of a sudden came out of nowhere, and I think everybody now uses. But not just Checkers did that. You see that happening at Pick and Pay, at Woolies. So I think in the on-demand space there's a lot happening, but also outside of the on-demand space, so like in all types of logistics, and especially last mile logistics, there was a huge move forward.
Okay, all right, thank you. And like you said, we are almost 2 years further now. And has consumer behavior changed when it comes to delivery services? And how is technology improving user experience?
Yeah, so what we see and saw is that the surge in e-commerce demand, a lot of that came from consumers that had never bought online. Before I even go to that, maybe just in general, obviously delivery experience is always very important, right? Like delivery experience is one of the most important parts of an e-commerce experience. Somebody that buys online needs to get that parcel delivered to them. If you have a bad experience, there's a big chance you won't buy again from that same retailer. But with all these kind of first-time consumers, first-time online consumers buying online with COVID, we saw this huge surge with just standard deliveries. But as the demand stayed high, because the demand has stayed high, it hasn't dropped. The demand for great delivery service, for better delivery service, for a great experience has also increased. And I think you can see this, across the board. If you look at the biggest e-commerce companies, both internationally as locally, a lot of them have, moved to building their own technology, their own logistics and delivery services. Think about Amazon, think about Alibaba, and locally think about Takealot. But for everybody else, for all the other retailers, they need to kind of jump on this new demand for delivery service. And contrary to popular belief, this demand is not just people wanting faster delivery. Really, what is the most important thing, and what we're seeing a lot now, is demand for control of delivery, for optionality. So online consumers buying online want to be able to determine when they get a parcel delivered and how they get a parcel delivered. And I think if you look at the South African landscape, online landscape, there is a lot of movement in that space, but still we're quite far behind. And as Pargo, as a company, this is really the space that we're trying to play a role, and we help big retailers like Foschini Group, Clicks, KPN, Mr. Price, with their omnichannel strategies, omnichannel delivery strategies, and work with them to realize and cater for the situation that the modern online user, the modern online shopper is both online and offline, right? They see an ad on Instagram on their phone. They then go to the website to check out the prices. But maybe the next day they're walking in the mall, so they're walking to the store. Like, how do you get all this stuff? They buy it in store. They don't want to deliver it to their home. When it arrives, it's not the right size, and you get returned. They want a replacement. So it's like a lot of stuff happening online, offline, in store, at home. And how do you make sure as a company that you can cater for that, and that you can keep up with all those different demands, and ensure that omnichannel experience for your consumer remains high? And that's really like a big change, and the space again that we as a company play in, and that we see a lot of change and innovation happening around us.
Okay, and lastly, what does the future hold in terms of e-commerce fulfillment? What will it look like in the future? Are we likely to see delivery by drones or delivery by autonomous vehicles? What does the future hold, especially here in Africa?
So first, I think we're just scratching the surface. I think we're very much at the beginning of what's going to happen, which is everything is going to go more and more online. We see this across the world. There are, believers, there's other people that feel that Africa is not going to follow the same trends that we see elsewhere. But to be honest, I think COVID has shown that that's going to happen. So we grew from 1% to 5% people buying online. I think that's going to just continue growing to 10, 15, 20%, and more in the future. But Africa does have specific problems, and specific solutions are needed for that. And really, where I personally see it happening is on two fronts, right? It's on the first side, it is to really get African consumers, the African middle class, to buy online, to really enable e-commerce across the continent, and not just for a few people, let's say in Cape Town and Johannesburg. It's being able to create accessible and affordable delivery. So it's really to solve that problem of how can you get a parcel to anybody in the country or on the continent for a reasonable price? Because if you don't, then it doesn't make sense to buy online, right? At the moment, still in Africa, logistics, the delivery part makes up to 4 times more of the total cost compared to the rest of the world. So 4 times more expensive than the rest of the world. And that has to do with issues that we have on the continent, infrastructure that's not always great. It's a large continent, it's a large country, so people that live far away. The fact that addresses are often lacking. So how do you solve that problem, right? And one of the things that we're working on a lot is a consolidated delivery solution whereby we've built this network of pickup points, collection points across the continent and across South Africa to allow people to collect from there. So really that accessibility and affordability issue is the first thing we need to keep tackling and solving as we move forward. I think that's very Africa specific. The second bit is more on the kind of innovation and convenience and cool things as you were discussing around drones. Though is the first thing that comes to mind. But I think there it is use of data, technology and data, but really using data to become smarter, to understand better where your consumers are, what they need, to use that data to start doing predictable delivery times. And to keep on ensuring again that your consumer, the online user, has the best experience possible. And that is partly, as I said, using data. From a technology perspective, it means that you offer them different delivery options. So the future that we see is that in a couple of years, it doesn't matter where you are in the African continent. You could be a farmer in the middle of Malawi. But you are able to go, to go into your smartphone, to go to Amazon.com or Alibaba.com and buy whatever you need, get that parcel, flown into Africa, get it for a reasonable price, delivered to a collection point, a collection depot close to where you are. If you don't think that's convenient, you can then go online onto an app and get a scooter driver to collect for you and deliver to you at the time that you want when you are at home, right? So really put that control back into the end user, and that's really, I think, where it's going. So definitely innovation, but innovation built for the African continent, for the African consumer, and in that way, really making sure that e-commerce is enabled for everybody, and again, not just for the happy few that are currently buying online.
Okay. Thank you, Lars. Thank you for your time. And I hope you'll join us in person next year when we host the next edition of Digital Retail Africa. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Cheers.